journey getting into the analytics space? Because I know that you did not get a degree in data science or analytics or anything like that, right?
Correct. So yes, so as you can, I don't know if you can see from my shirt over here, I graduated from Emory University with a degree in chemistry. And when I joined the university, I was originally, pre-med and was like, you know what, I'm going to become a doctor, like half of the freshman class at the time. And what happened was, I finally realized I didn't really have much of a passion for chemistry, and I didn't really want to pursue a career in the natural sciences personally. And so when I graduated, no job, had no idea what I was doing, and was super lucky to get an internship at a company called Interstate Batteries, which is, I believe, the largest distributor of lead acid batteries in North America. So like the car batteries, basically. And in that internship, I was placed in IT. And they didn't really give me much work, and I, just couldn't stand the work in IT. I didn't really want to work with like ERP systems and stuff like that. So prior to that, I'd actually taken a supply chain course on EDX. And so I went to the 6th floor of the building because they'd given me no work in IT, and which is where supply chain was. And I started asking around. I'm like, hey guys, like, do you guys have any work for me? Like, IT's not giving me any work, and supply chain seems pretty cool. Eventually, I found a team that took pity on me and then gave me a stack of business cards, and we're like, okay, we need these like put into an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm like, okay, cool. That's some work. That's something for me to like do. Because otherwise I would just like come in and like sit for like 8 hours a day and do nothing. It was incredibly boring. So, put all the cards inside. And then a director luckily just happened to notice that I'd done that and then suggested me to another director and said, hey, this might be someone you want to hire. And that was the director that hired me into the analytics team, which they were just forming at Interstate. And so I was hired into the analytics team, no skills, just a willingness to work. And my manager, luckily, so he was like 26 at the time, so he was pretty young too. He was getting into data science himself. And he told me, okay, we have these two tools. We have a tool called Alteryx and we have a tool called Tableau. Now, for those of you that don't know, Alteryx is basically a data munging tool, a data wrangling tool that you can use to kind of as a step-in for Python. It's like a no-code version of Python. And then Tableau is a BI tool, a business intelligence tool, basically meaning that you can use it to like, make visualizations and stuff. It's a competitor for Power BI. And so, just started picking up these tools. These tools are meant to be easy to use. And luckily through that, I was able to learn a lot of like the thought process behind working with data. And after that, I learned both those tools, and that's how I got into the analytics space.
Okay, cool. All right. So that was a pretty smooth transition. So you were able to do it intra company. So within that same organization, you got that.
Correct.
And then, which is something else I wanted to talk about too. So you got that first analytics job, and then now currently you work in a different company, right?
Yes. So I'm a data analyst level 3, which is kind of like a senior data analyst at Nordstrom. And I work with corporate analytics or strategic analytics. We just rebranded.
Okay. So that's something I wanted to kind of touch on is not only how do you make that transition, but then what does it look like once you're on the other side of like growing your career? But before we get to that, what I think you've described, or what I've been telling my students at High Point and Greensboro College, is that you hit that quarter life crisis, which I think is a new phenomenon for probably most people who go through college. Like there seems to be somewhat of a disconnect between what colleges are teaching or preparing people for and then the job market. I mean, obviously not in every single, like if you get a degree in analytics, I think it does a pretty good job of kind of lining you up. But if you study like science, it's like, well, how does that kind of map into the business world unless you're working in a lab? I mean, how did you feel? So number one, it sounded like you were bored out of your mind. And then number two, you were taking on like, I mean, like literally looking at a card and typing it into Excel. I mean, what was that like for, I guess, day in and day out? Like, how did you cope with that?
I think for me, it was, so I was lucky and unlucky, I'd say. I had kind of just been slogging it out, like trying to get this chemistry degree, and I hated the subject, could not stand it. So the fact that someone willing to pay me to do something, instead of me paying, in my situation, me paying a university to do something I didn't like, that was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm getting paid to do something. And so I think for me, that was like a big source of the inspiration. It was really just, I was just thankful to be paid for anything at that point. And I had been applying quite regularly to get into jobs, really didn't get into anything. So I was really lucky that Interstate decided to hire me at that point. So I think it was very much a mindset thing that was formed by the situation I had earlier, where I was like, okay, you know what, like if I just show them I'm working, I'll get like, someone will notice it somewhere. And that's where I would say I was just very lucky that a director happened to notice the work I was doing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I've been thinking about quite a bit. And I think this theme keeps coming up over and over. Early on in your career, or early on with anything, there's the main thing you need to prioritize is hustle.
Yes.
Like just turn over enough rocks, and you're going to find something interesting. Then you get to a period in your career where it shifts, and this is the phase that I'm kind of finding myself in now, where I shouldn't hustle. In fact, what I do when I'm stressed is I work extra hard to self-soothe, which really that's a bad tactic because later in your career, it's more about judgment, less about kind of the volume of work that you're doing.
Right.
Which is something that I'm kind of like struggling with a little bit myself, of like, I will have downtime and I don't know what to do with that. And I want to immediately fill it with work, which a lot of times it's, I don't know, just busy work. It's it's more about feeling better and feeling productive than actually doing kind of the tough work. So what happened after you got that? So what was your first title, and was it just Analytics 1 or Analyst 1?
Business analyst. That's what that was the title I got. I was really a data analyst, less of a business analyst, but I was given the title of business analyst because I wasn't like communicating requirements to a development team. I was taking in requirements myself and building analytic products out of it. So it was really much closer to a data analyst, but the title was business analyst.
And then how did you go? Did you get another promotion within that company, or did you go directly to Nordstrom after that?
So I got another promotion within Interstate Batteries. They, saw the hours I was putting in. So in that first job, I would put in like 60-hour weeks quite consistently because at that point, I would say one source of inspiration was I felt like I knew nothing, which is probably a very fair, judgment of my skills at the time, because I graduated with a chemistry degree, which didn't really, and it's not the fault of the university. It's I should have, picked a different degree, but the degree really did not prepare me for the workforce or for the work I'd be doing, because it was all computational. It was all business. It was all supply chain. Like, I really couldn't link my degree to what I was doing there. So I was willing to put in those hours because I'm like, okay, a lot of my friends, they got their degrees in like finance, XYZ careers, and now they're doing that in the workplace. And so they got this head start over here. So I need to like work extra hard just to, catch up to everyone. What I personally thought was a healthy source of competition, but for some other people might be very stressful. And so, yeah, I think that's what I did at Interstate. And then I went to CSC ServiceWorks after that as a senior data analyst. So someone from Interstate that I knew, really smart guy, he became a director and eventually a VP at CSC ServiceWorks, and then asked me to join him. And this was actually another interesting like jump in my career, because I'm like, okay, like getting that senior data analyst title and like being asked to like put out independent work without like a direct manager, because he was a VP, he didn't have time to like manage me. That was a really big mental shift for me, because now I'm no longer a junior. I'm no longer being told, okay, here's like the outline of work, go do this thing. It's like, here's the problem, go solve that, figure out how you're going to solve it. And through that job is actually where I picked up Python and SQL, because Alteryx, tremendous tool. It's $6,000 per year per license.
Wow.
Very expensive. I don't think the price is bad, depending on who you give it to. But I could just learn Python, which is free and open source. And I'm no longer tied to companies that use Alteryx, which in my experience are relatively few. In my recent job search, the only company I saw that was using Alteryx was Ford. Everyone else is like, no, just learn Python. And so that's where I learned Python and SQL. That way I could like expand my skill set and be a lot more useful to more employers. And that all happened in my second job. So my second job is kind of like where my mind shifted from, I'm no longer a junior, I'm a senior, I'm expected to do my own work.
Right. And that also seems to map onto kind of that theory of